Hi everybody, I just want to say thank you very much for spending your time and giving me the chance to tell you about the importance of time management in sales. My name is Chris Spence and I'll be talking about time management today. My practitioner was Jack Spence, and Jack Spence is the Director of Sales for T-System. He has 38 years of experience in sales. He has spent the last 8 years with his current company, T-System, and he's developed most of the current sales processes at that company. Jack has been a huge part of the success at T-System. Now, a little bit more about Jack. He's worked for 6 companies over his career. Now, these 6 companies combined, he's spent 38 years at. He's currently at T-System, and he's been there for 8 years. And he told me, honestly, T-System is his favorite company that he's ever worked for. Now I asked Jack, as a director of sales, how important is the skill of time management? What are some instances where time management has been vital to success? Also, tell me about a time when you didn't use time management well, and how it affected you, if there is a time like that. Jack said, listen, time management is very important. Is it the most? I would have to say no. And when he told me this, I went, whoa, whoa, whoa. Wait, it's not the most important? He said, no. He said, it takes the proper mix of attributes in order to be a successful sales manager. He said, without those proper attributes, no matter how good a time manager you are, no matter if you have the ever-present Franklin Covey and you have a great textbook knowledge of time management, you're going to fail without these proper attributes. He said, in a company with strong growth desires, time management fits second, right after those. That it's very important, and that without the time management, you're not going to be successful in a growing company. And as far as how vital is time management, he said, every day. Every day in order to be successful, he has to use time management well. Now he said, as far as, what about time management for me? He said, a sales rep at heart, that he has to use time management to make sure he participates in those many but necessary non-direct sales activities. He said, different from a sales rep, a sales manager has so many different things he has to do, and he has to go to all these meetings and all these non-direct sales activities. As a salesman at heart, those aren't his favorite things. He wants to be out in the field selling and be having conferences with the salespeople, but instead he's got to do these. He's got to balance those. And he has no problem doing the sales-oriented stuff, but what he's really got to do is use time management to make sure that he does the non-direct sales activities. And kind of a lasting impression he left from this question was, listen, he wanted to let us all know you will fail. And that's okay, because growth comes from how you respond to adversity, not adversity in and of itself. The next question I asked Jack was, what are some of the most important skills that you have learned since the start of your career? He said the most important skill for a sales leader is the allocation of time to an opportunity based on actual facts and not on the hopes, desires, or assumption of the rep. Now he kind of described this. He said, listen, you might have gone through the cold calling stage and talking to a whole bunch of clients, and now you're in the stage with 3 clients that you're going to do a hospital visit. And you go through and you visit all 3 hospitals. One hospital is gigantic, and it's got a huge amount of hospital beds in the emergency room department. It would be a huge sale with huge commission for you and great profit and great revenue for the company. But on the adversity side, there's these other 2 small hospitals that don't have that many beds, wouldn't be a huge amount of profit or revenue for the company, and wouldn't be near as big a commission for you as the other sale. But he said, listen, you've got to base it on the actual facts and not on your hopes. He said, those 2 companies, those 2 smaller hospitals might be the best contracts to pursue, whereas you hope to get that huge contract. But in all honesty, it might not be a possibility. And if that's the case, you've got to go after those 2 smaller ones and just forget about the bigger hospital, because it's not worth your time. He said, the best thing I can think to describe it is the Kenny Rogers song, The Gambler. You gotta know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away. Sometimes you gotta go full hard press after a contract, and sometimes you just gotta walk away because it's not the right contract and it's not worth spending the time on it. He said, always strive to determine the cost of getting a deal against the likelihood of winning. In his case, he says, does the cost or the benefit weigh more? If the cost outweighs the benefit, you can't do it. But if the benefit outweighs the cost, you got to go for that deal. And that's really how you determine what deals you're going to go after. He said sometimes you have to walk away from what would have been a very profitable deal. Just because it's a profitable deal doesn't mean it's the right deal. I said, Jack, in your field as a salesperson, how often should you be contacting your clients and contacts? And what type of relationship should you have with them, at least at a minimum? Jack said he organizes his clients into 3 categories. And he organizes them based on the size of the revenues they bring to his company. With the largest companies and clients getting a quarterly visit, the mid-tier getting a semi-annual visit, and the smaller ones get an annual visit. He said the reason I do every single one, at least annually, is because he has to determine early on if a client is planning a move. And if they're planning a move, he has to have enough time to reestablish the value provided. By doing this, he says he 99% of the time has enough time to reestablish his product, reestablish the value it provides, and keep them a client. Now obviously, a smaller client, if you lose them, it's not going to kill your business. But you have to keep these largest ones. And that's why I said you do those quarterly. Like I said, these aren't typically in-person visits. They're either a conference call or via video conference. He said, listen, one of the biggest things you can do is establish contact with as many different stakeholders as possible and use the accumulated knowledge of all to determine next steps and not live and die with a single contact. You're going to make tons and tons of contacts if you work and try to. And you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You're going to get 10 no's possibly before you get 1 yes. And with that, with the math, the more contacts you make 110 contacts, then 100 of them might tell you no and 10 of them tell you yes, that's 10 yeses. But if you only make 10 contacts, you might only get 1 yes. So the more contacts you make, the better you're going to be, the more successful you're going to be. And one thing that he left me with is that it's not necessary to make a prospect a friend. You know, he said salespeople get this negative connotation. He said, I don't really know why, because in all honesty, sales has changed, and people aren't going to buy a product because it's from their best friend generally. That a person is going to buy a product based on their current position. What's right for them and their company. If your product is best for that company, regardless of if you're a friend or not, they're going to buy that product because it makes them look good and it makes their company more successful. On the other hand, if you're their best friend and you don't have a product and your product's not the best, then 99% of the time they're not going to buy that product because it doesn't make them look good by buying the weaker product, and their company's not as successful with that product. So what is the hardest thing about a sales job? He said the hardest thing about a sales job is time. Now, you have to use time management in order to be successful, because the hardest thing is time. It's not easy, folks. The hardest thing about sales is managing your time. That time is spent between current deals and the legwork of getting new deals. He said it's really a tricky scale. You've got to balance between the two. And a successful career in sales requires that balance. Now, one thing he told me is cold calling is inescapable. He said, you know, no matter who you are, no matter if you're a 24-year-old straight out of college, or if you're a 58-year-old director of sales, he said, listen, you're going to have to cold call. Yes, obviously some more than others, but that's where all sales start. So cold calling is a fact of life, and if you're in sales, it's inescapable. Now, I said, what type of qualities and personality does someone have to have in order to be successful in a sales career? He said, you have to be a self-starter. If you're not a self-starter, you won't keep yourself motivated to be successful. So you have to be decisive. You have to be able to make a decision on a moment's notice. You have to be a good communicator, and you have to be goal-oriented. He looks for all these qualities in a potential sales rep. He said, also, when he goes into an interview, he looks for how the person comes across and their personality. Because what works in New York will meet with rejection in Mississippi, he said. He said, there's different cultures and different people, and how one people like to be treated and how they like to see a personality in a culture, the other culture will reject. So you have to have different salespeople, and if you're interviewing for the Southeast, you have to find somebody that really fits in with that culture. You can't take somebody that would be successful in New York, regardless of how successful they've been, and stick them in the Southeast, because what they do is not going to work there. I said, have you ever had problems with an employee due to a lack of time management? Regardless if that is procrastination, laziness, or just a very bad sense of organization. Jack said, selling is a process, and people, well, they're people. And what do we know about people? We make mistakes. We're not perfect. And we choose eventually, and most times, to do what we want to do. Regardless if it's the right thing or not, most people do what they want to do. He said the difference between a good sales rep and a bad sales rep is that good reps will follow the process to win. They'll use time management, and they'll use and do what they need to do in order to win, while the others will suffer a different outcome. So if you don't use time management properly, and you don't divvy up the different activities that you need to do with cold calling, maintaining current opportunities, as well as trying to find new ones, and maintain your also current clients, you'll suffer a different fate than the good reps. You'll fail. I don't know how long it'll take, but you'll fail. So time management is a learned art, though. He said, listen, you're going to come out of college, you might be good at time management, you might not be. He said, but you'll learn it. It's a learned art. And it'll completely change from the academic world to your career. He said, you'll continue to learn time management. You'll continue, as long as you work at it, to get better at it over your career. You'll never be at a point where you're done learning. It's a learned art, not a skill. Now, we've talked a lot about time management, but I'm curious about how that can affect your personal life. And I said, Jack, obviously you've been very successful and couldn't have gotten there without good time management and dedication. So I said, has your sales career ever interfered in your personal life? Do you ever have to take home your work, and what do you and your family think about it? Now, I don't know if any of y'all are like, whoa, that might be a little bit personal, but fortunately for me, Jack Spence is my dad. So I was lucky enough to be able to ask this question in complete comfort. And he was completely comfortable with it. And the reason I really wanted to ask this question is that a lot of us aren't going to be able to ask this question to most people. So I really wanted all of us to really get a sense for the impact a sales career can have on a family, so we can make an informed decision about what we want to do with our careers. He said, you know, it's about balance and working smart. He said, you have to be smart in what you do, and you have to balance what you do. Yes, you have to balance your work as far as time management, doing these activities and these activities, but in life, you have to balance work with your outside life. He said, sales though, it typically has a way of slipping over into your personal life. So he said, keys to minimize that is to not overanalyze or develop. He said, balance is about finding a way to work your job and minimizing its impact on the family. Like I said, a career in sales will no doubt slip into your personal life, and by extension, cause some negative impact on your family. But by using time management and working smart, it can be more supportive of family time than a standard 8-to-5 job. He said, you know, he can really take off time if he needs to, whether that's during the day or whenever, to do very important things with the family. Yes, he might have to work a couple of nights in order to do that, or he might have to work a weekend, or he works harder during the week, or he works more time during the week so he can take a Friday off and go to a football game over the weekend and travel all that weekend. Now I said, the students in my class are upperclassmen, and a lot of them are graduating soon. what would your encouragement be to them in order to have early and long-term career success? I really wanted to know his encouragement as far as us being successful in our careers early and long-term. What do we need to do in order to have good time management skills? Like he said, since the work world is so different than college and the school world that we've been in for 17 years. He said a lot of college graduates are more interested in where the current positions may take them next than what a lifelong career with a single company would provide. In other words, he said, you know, people are planning on job hopping. They'll go to their first company, use that, and whenever the next option opens up at another company that gives them a little bit of a bump, they're going to take it nowadays. He said, now that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it can lead to quicker promotions. And so it can't be a bad thing always if it leads to quicker promotions. But what he did want to encourage us as a class is that when you're working a new job, when we start a first job, he says, approach it as if you plan to retire from the same company. He said it's really incredible. He said you'll love what you're doing more, you'll be more successful at your job. There's no doubt that upper management will see that dedication in that you plan on staying there the entire time, and that will differentiate you and set you apart from the others that you're working with. And that'll get you the promotions over everybody else. And I said it's kind of funny because, you know, probably a reason that job hopping kind of started, he said, the fact is, if you're one of these people that approaches it, that you plan to retire with that company, those qualities are things that other companies look for. And in all honesty, most times, that's the people they recruit and they hire away from other companies. So if you do these things, not only will you probably get promoted faster at your company, but you'll have a better chance of getting hired by an outside company for an even higher promotion possible. Why should someone pursue a career in sales, and why should someone not pursue a career in sales? He said the pros are the lifestyle. He said, I love the lifestyle. And one of my favorite things about sales, he said, is the opportunity of helping a company address a business need. He said, now, it's even better in my case because I get to help someone with a life-threatening medical issue receive the best possible care because he truly believes and will tell anybody that his product is the best in the industry and their product allows hospitals to provide the best possible care to their patients. He said that is what he loves about his job. He's able to do that every day, and that gives him the motivation to go out there and do his best work. He said another great benefit of sales is the flexibility. Because it's not an 8 to 5 work job, yes, you're typically working from 8 to 5, but if you need time here to do this or time here to do this, you just have to manage that time and make up that time later or do that time earlier. He said, I'm really flexible, and sales is one of the most flexible careers/jobs out there. He said the cons used to be a big deal. When he had kids at home, he said the children were questioning why he had to leave, especially when they were little, when they were 2 and 5 years old. He said, listen, they would sometimes stand at the door crying, Dad, why do you have to leave? And that was really hard for me, he said. But, you know, overall, he said it was worth it because he was able to provide a great childhood for them and be able to provide a very comfortable life. And the small few cons were worth it. He said you just have to dedicate time, especially if you're going to have a family and try to be dedicated to that family. You've got to dedicate time to planning. Okay, you're going to be out of town for this, you're going to be out of town for that, but you're going to make sure to be home for football games that your kid's in. You're going to make sure to be home for that holiday play that your daughter's in. As far as pursuing a sales career, he said, pursue it if you like to meet new people. If you have thick skin and are interested in helping business address a need. Kind of tag the thick skin back into the previous statement that, hey, you're going to get 10 no's possibly before you get 1 yes. So you got to have that thick skin and be able to take it no. He said, don't pursue it if you're resistant to change, uncomfortable with pressure, and prefer consistency, because you're not going to succeed. Because sales provides none of those things. Sales is constantly changing. There's no structure to it. And because there's no structure to it, there's no consistency. So you shouldn't look into sales if that's the case. I said, what do you like about your job? He said, the team and the company are both amazing. He said, what we provide has a pronounced impact on improving the overall outcomes of emergency room patients. He said, listen, the product we provide, man, it's incredible. And I get joy in providing that product to hospitals, knowing that adversely it'll have a great impact on the patients they provide to. He said, but the incredible thing, the reason he loves T-Systems so much and loves his job is that the team and the company are both amazing. He said the team always works together, fills in for each other. If there's a team member that has a family issue that comes up, they'll do whatever they need to make sure that somebody else will take that role so that family member can go, so they can go home and be with their family members. He said, and he loves the company because they're so supportive of the team. And anything that the team needs, the company's going to give to them. I said, would you change anything about your job? Why or why not? He said, honestly, now, he said he changed very little. He said, now, when I got there 8 years ago, there were some things that I thought could be changed. There was very little processes in the sales department. He said, but the best thing about this company is that they allow a great deal of latitude with adjusting processes or plans on an ongoing basis, and they understand that change is an everyday part of the job. He said because of this philosophy, he was able to change the company from no structure really in the sales organization to now today, over 8 years, he's really implemented almost all the sales processes that they have, and they use those sales processes to be successful every day. So he said, now, honestly, I love it, and there's almost nothing that I would change about it. I said, is there anything that you would like to add on top of all the great information you have already given us? You know, I really wanted to give Jack a time to tell us something that he thought was super important. We've been talking a lot about time management and sales in general, but what is the one thing or a couple things that he really wants to let us know so we can be successful in our careers? He said, flat out, everyone sells. And I just kind of laughed because I think we all know John Cole has told us that so many times this semester. We all sell. And Jack said, listen, it doesn't matter if it's an executive assistant going to her boss saying, we need iPads. The reason we need these iPads are because we'll be able to do our work faster, it'll cut down on the time of emailing, and then we can use them in the waiting area, and our clients can use them, and if they ever have to wait longer, then they won't be near as mad, because they'll have this iPad to occupy them. And I think the benefits outweigh the cost. Now that's selling. And a much simpler selling is a child going to his mom and dad, Mom, Dad, I really, really, really want this toy. You know, he might use different things, but the fact is we all sell. And because of that, sales is a natural part of who we are as a people. And if developed correctly with a good use of time management, it can be turned into a very rewarding career. Listen, if you have the qualities to be a good salesperson and you develop your time management correctly and work hard at your goals and at your career, sales will turn into a very, very rewarding career. I really just want to wrap up and kind of remind you of some of the most important things that we said about the importance of time management in sales. I really just want to nail this down. You know, Jack Spence has had 38 years of experience in sales. He is extremely experienced and has been working in the sales career for almost twice as long as most of us have been alive. He said the idea of time management will shift from planning and dedication to balancing and choosing as we move from college to our careers. So, you know, in college, it's all about dedication and planning. We have enough time, as long as we plan and are dedicated to our schoolwork, to get it done. But now when you go into the workforce, you have to balance and choose. Because all of a sudden, everything becomes important, and all of a sudden, you don't have enough hours in the day to get everything done. So what's most important? How much time should you spend on each of those important things? It all comes down to balancing and choosing in your career. And that will really determine how successful you are in your career. Because without successful and good time management skills, By balancing and choosing what's important and what needs to be done, you won't be successful. Time management is a constant act of juggling multiple important things. Time management is very important, and in order to be successful at a growing company, you will have to be good at it. And finally, he said, you will fail, but growth comes from how you respond to adversity, not adversity in and of itself. Don't be afraid to fail. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before he got the right light bulb, yet everybody remembers him for that one light bulb, not his thousands of failures. You will fail. Don't be worried about that. What you need to worry is how you react and bounce back from that failure. I just want to say thank you very much for giving me this time and listening to my presentation. And I just want to thank Jack Spence for the incredible insight he's given us into the sales career and time management and its importance on the sales career. And I just want to thank y'all once again, and have a good day.